Good evening and welcome to the Fourth Estate, the show that discusses the big stories of the week and how they were covered by journalists across the newsrooms. And today, of course, we have an elite panel, always the best panel of journalists who've handled these stories. So I'll let them introduce themselves, starting with a new guest for us who's here for the first time. Please introduce yourself to our viewers.
I'm called Musings Branchen, and I'm a journalist. I have been a journalist for about 3 years. That's it. I usually write about numbers and how they influence our policies and everything that we do in life.
All right. Thank you so much, Blanche, for coming onto the show.
A pleasure.
Our resident guest, Agatha, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. Good evening, viewers. I am glad to have someone who will dissect for us
numbers.
The numbers, yes.
And that is, of course, where the Fourth Estate will start from this week. Now, this week, the National Unity Platform leader, Robert Kyagulanyi, declared that he had won the election that was conducted on January 14th by the Electoral Commission. He presented declaration forms to journalists from the National Unity Platform offices in Kamocha. Now, that story was covered by journalists differently. We want to dissect just how well it was covered by journalists, what questions were missed, what questions were asked, and how could the story have been covered better. But first, let's look at the story itself.
Security has been tight around the city for a good part of the day. As part of this situation, roads leading to the National Unity Platform Party headquarters were blocked, with very few individuals allowed to access them. At the NUP offices, party leaders were piling files onto a table, which will land to a declaration forms indicating results collected from different polling stations. According to Robert Kyagulanyi, these are over 24,000 forms and justify their display.
There must be an audit to this election. It must be overseen by an independent body. Election audits have been used in other countries, including Sierra Leone, Haiti, and Afghanistan.
Kyagulanyi said that these DR forms contain evidence of electoral malpractice, which the Supreme Court did not receive during his electoral petition. He's basing on these forms to claim an electoral win.
The DR forms prove that we won the election by 54.19%.
However, the Electoral Commission has rejected Kyagulanyi's contention that he won the election.
So we already published the results of the elections, as received and tallied in accordance with the law, and we announced and published those results, including announcing the candidate who obtained the highest number of valid votes in the election. We cannot comment about other results presented by an individual or a political party.
On the basis of those forms, Kyagulanyi is urging the public to take to the streets to demand their victory.
Article 29 of our Constitution empowers us to demonstrate peacefully and unarmed against any injustice. And that's exactly what we are calling you upon to do.
But the police say NUP members have to follow the law.
If they are planning their demonstration peacefully, they are supposed to notify us. They are not just supposed to go and announce in the media that we are going to have, or we should have, a peaceful demonstration. So if they are doing that minus following the law, then they will be engaging in an illegal activity.
Onyango says that they have information that these demonstrations could be violent, hence the deployment around Kampala.
For him, he will come out and say it should be peaceful, but in the background, his supporters should be violent.
So we are hoping that police will be and the military will be there to keep law and order. That if I want to demonstrate peacefully, I'm holding my placard, I'm not beating up anybody and so on. Police should be there to watch and make sure I'm not attacked.
It is unclear how the situation will develop, with Kyagulanyi insisting on protests, even as the police vows to arrest anyone who defies the law. Solomon Kawesa.
All right, that's the story that was done by Solomon Kawesa. And I want to start with Blanche, where we have you here today. You've been following the numbers of the election from election night. What were the questions that journalists should have asked Robert Kyagulanyi immediately he made that declaration at the press conference?
Thank you. I was not at NUP on that day, but when I saw the figure, I interested myself in it. Firstly, that after the press conference, journalists never ask questions. So later I came to know that Kyagulanyi had released a detailed statement trying to show how he arrived at that 54.19% win. That itself is a big story. Bobi Wine, the NUP increased Bobi Wine's votes by 2.4 million as per the Electoral Commission. When you contrast it with the Electoral Commission, they also reduced Museveni's votes by 1.6 million votes. They increased the voter turnout by near 1 million votes. So they also reduced, I think, sadly, Mayambara's votes by 1,000 and I think 500. For all other presidential candidates, there was an increase in the number of votes that they had got. So in the statement, there is nothing that explains how NUP came up with this 54.19% figure. The only credit that is in that statement is Bobi Wine presents 92 polling stations where he says there are inconsistencies with the way that Electoral Commission, with the data that the Electoral Commission published. So from those inconsistencies, by tallying those 92 polling stations, you find that if they are true, because they never even provided declaration forms for those polling stations, Bobi Wine was cheated around, I think around 15,000, no, I think around 50,000 votes. But also interestingly, from those declaration forms, they show that Museveni was cheated around 1,800 votes. So that itself is very interesting. Then Bobi Wine also said there are 1,700 polling stations where Museveni's votes were increased by the, so what's on the declaration forms is not what is in the tally sheets, but he never gave us all those declaration forms. You see? So when after making this announcement, they said we are going to be uploading all the results on the Electoral on our website, which they started doing. At first, they published a district summary, which is a JPEG image. Imagine it's a JPEG image. Apart from that, they have also started publishing declaration forms. They have not published a tally sheet per polling stations that explains how or where did they find that the Electoral Commission had cheated them, increasing Bobi Wine's votes by 2.4 million. So that is a very, very big question. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Blanche. Agatha, this is also a very political story. It's not just a numbers story. It's a political story. After 2016, we saw the retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye do almost a similar thing. Say he won the election, released some of the declaration forms he had, which showed inconsistencies in the Electoral Commission. Is it the politics again at play here, or is it the meticulous planning of the National Unity Platform that some of the votes were stolen and they're now fighting back?
I think it's both. It's not new that there were inconsistencies in this election, just like in any other election that we have had since 1996. But for me, the thing that Blanche was talking about that raises issues is that us journalists tend to cut the opposition some slack, and it happens a lot of times. When this story that we're watching before aired, Solomon Kaweso said something like, we would later learn that the files contained results. So that means they didn't look at them. They just took, the journalists took Bobi Wine's word for it. I think what Blanche is saying of what exactly do they have? If we looked at it, what is its credibility and what information does it contain, in contrast with what we already have from the Electoral Commission. It's both a bad thing, but also it's because, as usual, the lack of faith and confidence in institutions of this country, that you have an electoral commission that no one believes in, that they would rather believe whatever else unverified, unauthenticated information that comes from the other side. So it would be good if us as journalists looked at the figures that are being tabled by Bobi Wine's camp. And of course, if we look at them and find them credible enough to be, would give it to them for being, I wouldn't know how they did that, considering that by election day, he had many of his agents and supporters in jail, and some were even arrested on election day. Yeah, but you know, when they raise those questions, it goes back to the institutions. If you had a Supreme Court that we trust that if we go, they can table this evidence, and the court assesses it and determines who between the two is displaying the correct figures, that would do. But you know, the way things are in this country, we end up never knowing who actually is right. So us as journalists, I think we can do so much of look into it, interrogate it, and probe where did you get these figures, how did you arrive at them, if are they from all the polling stations in this country, or are they from a few, which actually they don't have to come from all of them. If they have, you know, shown discrepancies in significant number, that should be enough to show that, yeah, they are right, their election was stolen. It might not be to the extent that they are saying, but I think that should be enough. So I think the work we have to do is around that. Look at their figures and study them carefully and table them. Let the public know that what Bobi Wine is saying is based on, you know, has some grounds, and yeah.
Blanche, after the Electoral Commission published their results, I remember you and I also did a lot of checking with the Electoral Commission results. Nonetheless, there were inaccuracies in the Electoral Commission results, which inaccuracies were pointed out. But the numbers seem to tally, at least from what was on the Electoral Commission website. What kind of questions should have journalists asked the National Unity Platform in terms of opening up their data for open search, the way the Electoral Commission opened up for us to be able to discover the inaccuracies on different polling stations?
Of course, they should have asked for the declaration forms. They should have asked for the tally sheet of their results. They should have asked the district summary. It's the most important. We have 146 districts. It takes less than 5 minutes or 15 minutes for a journalist to look at how the figures that NUP has, as well as the figures that the Electoral Commission has. So basically, journalists should not have left NUP headquarters without a district summary. The next day after that crime, I went to NUP and met Lewis, who is the Secretary General of NUP, and the party spokesperson, Joel Senyon. These are very smart. They are smart guys. So I started asking some questions. Where is your district summary? They showed it to me. It was a JPEG. Where is the polling station tally sheet?
Can you explain to us what's wrong with it being a JPEG? You have been talking about it.
A JPEG is an image. Someone posts an image on his or her website or the organization's website. So in data analysis, the most friendly formats for analyzing data are Excel for us, the beginners. Then there are programming languages where you also analyze data. So what the Electoral Commission does is that they publish PDFs. So you can easily convert a PDF to an Excel. But you cannot easily convert a JPEG to an Excel.
Does it affect the credibility of the information?
Yes,
being a JPEG?
It does. It does affect the credibility of the information that you are putting up. So NUP has been telling us that it is bringing the information it has to the public court for the public to scrutinize it. how do you give me a JPEG image, scrutinize it, which is worse than what the Electoral Commission publishes, a PDF? Also, you want to throw at me thousands and thousands of declaration forms. You know that I may not be having a lot of time to look into those declaration forms. So throw at me some organized information or organized data that I can easily analyze to identify inconsistencies in it, and say that actually you have credible information that people should take seriously.
Agatha, away from the National Unity Platform giving us these numbers, what was the crisis of our own newsroom's deficiencies in understanding numbers? All through the election to now, the Electoral Commission has thrown numbers, observers have thrown numbers at journalists, the opposition is throwing their own numbers at journalists, but it doesn't seem like any newsroom has sat down to look at those numbers and say, this is what these numbers actually mean, and help the viewer out there say, oh, these numbers are accurate, these numbers are inaccurate, this is what the story comes out of those numbers. What's the crisis of the newsrooms themselves in digesting this evidently political story whose basis is numbers that the newsroom doesn't want to analyze?
I think that points to two things. The first one is, honestly, genuinely, journalists are bad with numbers. They would rather run with he said, she said, than get the numbers and analyze them and put them in context of what that means. The second one is that, like I said, one, we cut the opposition a lot of slack as journalists, and it's a big problem, and I can't really get absolve myself of that. It's like the default position of we are
comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable.
No, but also we find it easier to believe the opposition than the government institutions, and also we find so we have gotten used to that, and it's, I blame it on the politics that for a long time we have had the politics of ping pong, and we have gotten used to running and saying, oh, Mseveni has said I will crush them, Dr. Besigye has said, you know. So we have concentrated on that we do not think, and actually I think that also affects our audiences, that I don't think we have an audience that will look through the numbers and say a story of numbers and say, oh, this story has, no, because we have gotten used to, on both sides, as serving them that politicking and the politicking language than real substance, and they have also gotten used to that. I can assure you that apart from journalists, you would find none of Bobi Wine's supporters asked those questions to understand, but why are you saying that? But what is the basis? But you know, those questions that would help someone make a decision that is informed, but because they are, so we are always thinking, yeah, government is wrong. Government is the one wrong. And we are comfortable staying in that position, and it has made us maybe even lazier. That, yeah, we haven't tried to make ourselves better in that sense. But the African Center for Media Excellence has had this data journalism that you have benefited from. I don't know if that's where Blanche became a star of the numbers from.
A master's graduate in
yeah, so we need to utilize that resource. That if each newsroom has someone like that who has at least taken off time to understand, you know, in depth more of that than the politicking, we should, you know, bring them on board if there's something like that. Say, okay, so Bobi Wine is presenting these numbers. How credible are they? What do they mean in the bigger scheme of things? And something like that. And I think, I don't know how we can do it to make ourselves work harder, and not to go to a press conference to put a microphone on someone speaking and go and just regurgitate that. It is a very big problem. I don't know, you are now one of the editors in the newsrooms. You guys can sit at that level and think if it's a problem of competency, if it's a problem of resources, and in that way we can you know, find ways of resolving it.
All right, thank you. We're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we wind down on this topic, and then we discuss the speakership race. Thank you so much for staying with the Fourth Estate. Just before we went, we were talking about the numbers. What should the newsrooms have done internally to be able to digest these numbers to produce a story? But now I want also Blanche to talk about these numbers put the Electoral Commission in a very difficult spot. They conducted an election in which the National Unity Platform was a participant. That election was meant to be challenged in the Supreme Court. The court petition was withdrawn, and now it seemingly is going to be challenged on the streets. But this is something that happened in 2016 too. It means that there is merit now gaining on the fact that the Electoral Commission and its ability to conduct this bureaucratic process, produce numbers that are authentic, is being challenged. Are you looking at it that way too, Blanche?
Yes. That's still, I think it's important because the burden is on the Electoral Commission to conduct a free and fair election that leaves each and every party satisfied with what it puts out. So, but also it's upon the political parties to have people that can analyze numbers for them and also ensure that they protect their votes. For me, the most surprising story that I found in these numbers is that there are polling stations where 7's votes were not put on the tally sheets. And
Whose tally sheet? The EC or
the EC? The EC tally sheet. And the party didn't know that actually the president's votes had not been put on the tally sheet. So there are 2 polling stations in Tororo where 7 scored, I think, 252 votes, and on the tally sheet it shows he scored 0-0. There are 2 polling stations in Wakiso where I think 7 scored more than 150 votes, and on the tally sheets they show that he scored 2 votes at each of those polling stations. Imagine NRM is the state is NRM. They have everything. They can reach anywhere. They had told that they had a voter protection team, and their voter protection team could not identify that 7's votes had not been well recorded.
But Blanche, I remember we looked at the Electoral Commission data when it came out, and one of the variances is in woman MP data, which is conducted at the district level, and presidential data. The discrepancies are wide there, and the National Unity Platform now seems to suggest that that discrepancy was used to cheat their candidate of their election victory. Is there merit in that claim?
I can't say there is a merit. I cannot say there is no merit, because when I tried to do that analysis, I focused on a very, very few districts which were suspicious districts, like Isingiro, which had 142 polling stations having 100% voter turnout, Chiruhura, Kazon, Tungamo, Kamwenge. So those are the districts that I focused on when trying to do that study. And it showed that there was a big variance between voter turnout for the president and voter turnout for the district woman MP. So that story is incomplete without finding, because to do this story actually I had to try to find the declaration forms, the district transmission of results form, the one that shows how many votes has each candidate scored for those districts, which is also not easy to get. So I was able to obtain those summary of result sheets for districts and do the study. It was a study that was based on less than 10 districts, yet we had 146 districts in this election. So we don't know what is in other districts. How wide is this variance in places where Bobi Wine won? How wide is this variance in places where M7 won? So, but also the Electoral Commission doesn't help us to do this kind of extensive analysis. When it released the results of MPs, it just gives you the candidate scores. It doesn't give you the total of the voter turnout. It doesn't give you invalid votes. Yet it also doesn't give you spoiled spoiled votes, yet you need all this to do that story, to know how many votes were invalid, what were the... So you need that to do the voter turnout and compare it for the president and the woman MP.
Agatha, very finally on this topic, it's now become a matter of politics. The National Unity Platform says they want to have street demonstrations against the fact that their results were stolen. This is something that we've seen in 2016, something that we saw in 2011, it ending up as a street protest. What are their chances?
You know, street protests would be effective ordinarily. We have seen that happen in the Arab Springs of 2010 and 2011. But I think for them to be successful, it depends on both the organizers and the people they are organizing. The reason 2011, the walk to work protests of 2011 did not amount to much as expected, because then the wave was the Arab Springs, and there was that energy that if the Hosni Mubarak's could go and the Gaddafi's in Libya, anyone can go, but it didn't go that far. And I think it comes to two issues. That one, the organizers are not organized enough and don't have the resources that a protest of that magnitude takes. Because to keep people on the streets sustainably, they have to leave food at home. They have to have what to eat. They have to know that I am on the street, I'm not working, but my children have eaten. And that has to come from the organizers, that you know that, okay, we will have a shift that will go in the morning and it comes back, and to sustain it. We cannot organize in this country to that level, because first of all, Ugandans are not a united people. Secondly, the resources are not there. I think the issue of unity is the reason why Ugandans can't really speak with one voice, because you have so many tribes that can't come together, so many religions, so many things people believe in, and you also have people that are very timid. And because, like I've said on this TV before, we have a population that is happy to be sleeping. You know, at least I sleep. Yeah. So for them, they cannot jeopardize those small wins for themselves and go to start fighting. I don't know if it's because they have seen what war is and fear to go back to that, but I don't believe that, because I am sure that countries that have done that have also seen wars. But one politician recently put it better and said, we are accustomed to settling for less. So if we are settling for peace, and, you know, eating, we are okay, we don't ask for much. So you'll have a group of people that say, Kasta, we go and do our businesses and go back home. Kasta, we eat and sleep. So the success might not be there. And especially because we have a ruthless security force. Infrastructure. Because in 2011, about 10 people died in the walk to work protests. Now it would be worse. It would be a massacre, because we have this precedent of 3 months ago in November, where 60 people were killed in a protest that had not even been publicized and people called upon. Now you can imagine this one, they are prepared for them. So I don't think we can afford that level of sacrifice. And yeah, you are against a force that has both the machinery and is ruthless, does not care for them. They have one objective, and it doesn't matter what they have to do to achieve it. So the success, I wouldn't think it's yes.
Thank you so much, Agatha. Thank you so much, Blanche, for coming and speaking to us today about National Unity Platform and the numbers. We plan to talk about the speakership race, but we're a little bit caught by time now. But do join us on the Fourth Estate again next week, same time, discussing the big stories of the week and how journalists covered them and what other questions they could have asked. I've been your host, Raymond Mujini. Have yourselves a good evening.